Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3H's of the channel. And in this video, it's going to get weird and strange and bizarre, so it's going to be wild. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, then definitely pull up a stump with me and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. My uncle and my dad seem to have had a run-in with the same thing. Both of them, I believe, happened in the same area of this stick marsh in Florida. So first off, my dad's. When he was out there were no vehicles allowed on the property. This, of course, is aside from fish and game law enforcement, but he was allowed to ride a bike. So he was riding his bike on this raised area that has a levee on one side. When he was looking over the levee, he sees this tall figure standing straight up at the bottom of the levee, but it was too dark down there to see more than a silhouette. He didn't want any of that, so he just hauled ass down to his tree stand and got set up for the day. Now at dawn, he heard a really loud wail off in the direction that he saw the silhouette. He hunted until sunset, finding nothing. After a disappointing day, he rode back at around sunset down the same trail, looking for a bush or a tree or something that could have possibly made the silhouette that he saw. But when he gets there, all he finds is an empty, flat drain field area. Now this one is the same season, but it's from the perspective of my uncle, like I said. It's the same stick marsh. I'm not sure how close the two areas were, but I'm quite sure it was the same area. So for him, he had no incident while going to his tree stand, and this is just after dawn, maybe 6:30 or 7 in the morning. He heard light footsteps while he was up in his tree stand. It sounded like a hunter running late to his spot. My uncle got pissed because he thought that the footsteps were going to spook the possible deer that would come through. So he stands up and looks in the direction of the sound and sees a human figure walking over to the brush toward the tree stand. Once the figure is clear of the brush, he notices that it's definitely not a hunter. It's big and it's tall, but it's walking like it's slumped over. It has these really long arms that are almost dragging on the ground. As it gets closer, he can see the thing's skin is gray and dull. He always compared it to shark skin. And then the thing comes right under his tree stand, looks around as if it's looking for something, and then looks straight up at him. He said that it barely had a nose or even eyes, just slits where they would be. He said it stared at him for what felt like hours, but it was probably only about 30 seconds. And then the thing simply looked back down and kept going about its way. And then, about half an hour later, he heard a very similar, almost the same, wail come from far off. He waited in his tree stand, frozen, and got no hunting done that day, just sat there in shock. Eventually, he climbed down and got the hell out of there. This is basically the short version of everything that happened. I live in Georgia, not the US state, the country in the South Caucasus. I was visiting my friend near his village in the mountains. We went hiking, so I drove to his village. We chill there for a bit and we leave together. He is quite experienced in this area, me much less so. But I found an ancient shrine to the hero god Gopala. It's a popular shrine. According to the local myths, he murdered the population of local, quote, Devi, which are mythological creatures, similar to northern Jotun. My friend stops and prays at the shrine. I take a small chunk of the throne of Kapala without my friend seeing it. We set up camp further down the river and chill and then go to sleep because it's been a long day. So I get out of the tent to go do my business a bit further in the woods so as to not wake up my friend. The woods feel different for some reason, darker. I finish my business and I get the urge to check around with the flashlight, and I see legs as tall as the trees. The legs are colored like semi-transparently. The only way I can describe it is a pulsing color, like when you rub your eyes or something like that. I begin to panic and I start running around like a dumbass, not really sure where I'm going. I see glimpses of many creatures, like that sort of thing, staring from the trees, leaning on them, looking down on me, or looking from the side. My friend wakes up and calls to me. I run back to the camp, following his voice, and I tell him everything I saw. He told me that I'm just a dumbass, and we should stay in the tent, and that I might have attracted some animals or something with my noise. But then, we hear footsteps and other noises the whole night. Neither of us sleep at all. The noises mysteriously stop at dawn. Only then do we get a little bit of rest. We wake up after a couple hours. The experience is ruined. He tells me that we should go back. I go back up the river, and I notice something. The pebble or piece that I broke away from the throne starts to feel like it's burning in my pocket. I take it out and I put it back near where I broke it off. When I get back home, I notice that I have a small burn on that place on my leg, and I still have it to this day, almost like a reminder. I work at a state park in Indiana, and in 2012, I saw something. I was working the third shift. That's late nights, if you don't know. I was night security. Now, before I got the job, they would always tell me that a lot of people would bail and just sometimes not show up for their shift. They didn't get specific. They just said that people would see weird stuff and leave. Now, up until the point that I saw this thing, nothing had happened. The entire season went off without a hitch until fall. I was sitting outside my post, cooking in the fire pit. My girlfriend at the time was spending the night out there with me. They allowed it because overnights can be long sometimes. If you've done it, you know what it's like. I had just done some checks, and I sat down to cuddle with my girlfriend in front of the fire, and then we heard a blood-curdling howl that turned into a scream. It started out high-pitched, like somebody was screaming for help, and then shifted quickly into a deep roar. We both instantly shoot out of our chair before the sound even shifts into the roar, because it was that unnatural. I try to remain calm, but I'm very startled. My girlfriend is utterly terrified and ready to run into my guardhouse at the first sign of trouble. I scan the tree line and the field to my left. I'm looking all around for the source of this sound. My girlfriend points at something. There's a female deer that's freaking out and rearing up on its hind legs and looking at something else that's behind the main office that's across from me. I scan. At first, I don't see anything, but then I scan again, and I can see a large, black humanoid figure bolt from behind the offices where the sound originated. It ran through the streetlight behind the offices, giving me a very short glimpse. I don't know if it was covered in dense hair or if it was just void black, but that's what it was. It had broad shoulders, and it had such a huge gait that it didn't even seem like it was struggling, but it was moving so quickly. It passed behind a large tree, and the branches covered it from a bit below the shoulders up. It seems to be charging at the deer. The deer finally stops kicking the air and gets down and bolts into the darkness. The large figure follows it. My girlfriend saw the thing chasing the deer and had bailed into the gatehouse, hiding in the doorway, completely silent with fear. Some other security ends up checking out the area to ease her mind, but we don't find anything. They finally explain, though, what happened previously. The third shift out here has had a history of people seeing this large black figure, a lot of times a humanoid, usually much taller than any human or deer or anything, and these sightings go back generations. One guy, who is now a police officer, was working with the head of security, and they saw 3 of them cross in front of their car in a very remote section of park property. Another saw one walking down the stretch of road in front of a gatehouse at 3 a.m. He thought it was a person until they got a little bit closer and saw that whatever it was taller than the corn in the fall and freaked out. They have had several reports in recent years of people complaining about being chased or even sometimes having their tents destroyed. The stories just keep coming. They've told me a lot of things that apparently the park keeps pretty hush-hush so that people don't avoid the park entirely, and apparently it's normal for state parks to do this. The following morning, I go back out there to see if I can find anything, and then I realized that the lowest branches that it ran behind were a solid foot over my head. That girlfriend never came out again, and I don't spend massive amounts of time outside the gatehouse now. I fear that one of these seasons I'll turn to a window and I'll see whatever it is glaring in the window or something. I'll probably just hide in the bathroom and call the police. Now, prior to this, I had another incident that I didn't really know what to think of it at the time. I had a couple friends come out and chill with me. As soon as they left to go get cigarettes, I immediately began to feel like I wasn't alone as I sat out next to the fire. And slowly but surely, almost like a chorus, I began to hear these inhuman noises. They eventually started to sound like they were almost rhythmic. No matter how quickly I shined my light off into the trees, they always seemed to be just outside the reach of the light. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A lot of you may assume that these were just a simple Sasquatch, but I've been assured that that's not the case. I've been told that there's more of them, and that they are not a Sasquatch. They're not really sure what they are. This all, of course, is off-the-record conversations with other co-workers. So I have a weird story. I'm not sure if it's truly paranormal or if I just misinterpreted a lot of stuff and everything got carried away. However, I think it's worth sharing. So, I live in a kind of isolated village in central Italy, not really on the edge of civilization, but still. Most very small villages are dotting a mountainous, forested area. And this was at the end of 2020. Me and my dad are taking the dog out for a walk, as per usual, at around 6:30 p.m. We usually go to a nearby dirt road going into the forest. It leads into the communal farms, and nobody lives there, so it's usually all for us after sunset. 2 Jeeps are parked at the beginning of the road. We assume that it's the usual hunters. The place is very small, and we kinda know everyone. They're packing up, and are all silent, which is very strange, since they should be starting at this time, and not leaving. We are a bit freaked out, but we keep going anyways, entering the forested area. There are usually wild animals, nothing dangerous, like hares, foxes, the occasional boar. We carry sticks and knives, although we never really had to use them. Being two people and a big dog usually keeps the animals away. However, tonight, there's no noise, not even a bird chirping. This is extremely weird. The dog, too, is a bit off. He looks scared and doesn't stray away from us very much. And suddenly, we hear a car coming up from the village. We turn around to see a jeep coming toward us at something like 50 kilometers an hour in a narrow, single-lane dirt road. We get to the side, and the jeep passes us without really slowing down. The guy driving is my neighbor. 4 other people who we don't know are with him. Also, he doesn't own a jeep. They keep at a good speed going to the farms. We are sincerely freaking out, but we keep going. We get outside the forested area, along the road, passing around the farms and going up a tall hill. We start going up, making our way through the bushes and the low vegetation. Halfway up, we hear close to 20 gunshots just on the other side of the hill, like full automatic assault rifle just emptying a magazine kind of gunshots. It's not uncommon to hear the occasional shot from a hunting rifle, but an automatic weapon is completely out of the scope of what you could own or carry around for hunting. Also, all the village hunters were at the beginning of the road 30 minutes ago, and there's no other way there. Dad was in the military, so he knows stuff like that, and is now looking extremely concerned. 5 seconds later, we hear this ear-shattering, blood-curdling scream that comes from the other side of the hill. I can't really describe it. Imagine like a mix between a pig being slaughtered with a sledgehammer and a woman screaming in absolute desperation. We stop on the track, and suddenly, we hear something very big moving into the bushes in front of us. Then, we catch a glimpse of some sort of shadow. It was very dark though. Instantly, I go to unsheath my knife, but my dad blocks my hand. He's clutching onto his weapon without moving. We start backing down. The dog is literally between our legs. Once down the hill, we literally start running at near light speed until home. We don't really talk about it, but both of us were rattled for weeks after. So some time passes, and we somewhat forgot about the thing. But then one night, at around 8 p.m., Dad was late at work, so he asks me to take out the dog. So I take out the dog on the usual dirt road, not really thinking about anything, just kind of spacing out. I get into the forested area, and I immediately again notice that something is off. The dog is not going around doing his business, but he's staying very close to me. There's no sound in the air. I start getting really nervous, but I convince myself that it's just my imagination. I get out of the forested area and I start going uphill. Out of coincidence, I point my flashlight to a bush that's about 50 meters or so to my left. The bush instantly starts shaking like I've disturbed something in it. I turn off the light, but still catch a glimpse of something big coming out of the vegetation. Without even really thinking, I start to walk fast going back home. Not running, since I don't want to trigger any predator. There's lots of wild dogs around recently, by running away. My fast pace continues into the forested area, while all around me I can hear noise of things moving. Some of them are very close. I'm scared, and the dog is whimpering. I finally get out of the woods and into the light of the lamplight that had been recently installed at the beginning of this dirt road. The noises stop immediately. I start going slowly on the last 500 meters or so, before the houses of the village begin. Halfway, I turn around to look. I see the shadow of something at the edge of the light. It's quadrupedal and very, very big, like cow big, but it's slender. Imagine like a deer, but its body is more humanoid, arched over, somewhat like an angry cat. It has a long neck going into a large, pointy head that's also long. It's crawling all over the road, kind of like it's smelling for tracks. My brain just shuts off, and my legs are instantly running at Mach 5. I get home, and I'm shivering. My dog hides under the bed crying and won't come out. I still can't process what happened. I haven't talked about it to anybody. I've lived here for 25 years, and I've been hunting and been around everywhere, and I've never, ever seen something like that. There are no wild animals in this region that can even vaguely resemble the silhouette or the size of what I saw. The only thing big enough could be a cow or a horse, but that was absolutely not the case. I've seen my fair share of cows and horses. Also, I don't understand if the older episode could be connected to the one that just happened, or if it was just the number of coincidences from beginning to end, and I've somehow misinterpreted everything and got scared of my imagination. Last, there's nothing like this in the region's folklore. There's no weird beasts, no mystical animals or strange cryptids. In fact, there's no cryptid folklore here at all. So, if you had a favorite one of those, let me know which one it was. If you have one of your own, feel free to send it in. I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Also down there is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And of course, super thanks here on YouTube. And I thought I would end off the video on one of my own really weird, bizarre stories. Now, if I remember correctly, this would have been sometime in August in 2018. Now, Lord knows why I was driving on the highway, especially that highway, at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I was. So, there's a section of this highway which is locally referred to as the New Highway. Personally, I believe it's because it's just not full of potholes like the rest of the highway. But anyways, it's also pretty open in that area too, since, it's been recently developed. But this connects to the highway that I have to take to get to my community. And when you get onto the older section of the highway, the trees close in pretty quickly. They're almost, or at the time they were, right up against the pavement, which means that you had to drive quite a bit slower than on the other part because you never know what kind of animals or whatever is going to come out of the woods. Now this area is also quite marshy and swampy, so there's a lot of moose around there, and you really got to watch out for them because I made that mistake a month later where I hit one, or it hit me, whatever. It ran out in front of me and I wrecked my car. But this is a month before that, and about 10 minutes back from that. Not that it matters, just getting the details straight in my head. So I'm driving along, and there's this area where you go down a hill, and then you turn, and then go up a hill. If you're driving, the whole section takes less than 20 seconds to get up and down it, but there's this trail that goes off of the right side if you're going toward the city, or if you're coming back on the left side. Now down this trail, I saw something really weird that caught my eye. Thinking it was an animal, while I was at the top of the hill, I slowed down, and when I looked over at it, it didn't really seem like an animal. Or it did, but it kind of wasn't, if you get what I mean. It looked almost like a wolf, and in my part of Canada, wolves are not really common. A lot of people believe they aren't here at all. So not only am I seeing an animal that's not supposed to be here, I'm also seeing it standing up, or appear to be standing up. And if that wasn't weird enough, after it saw my headlights, it looked at my vehicle and then got very close to the ground. And then, as if the whole thing isn't weird as it is, it disappears. And I don't just mean it ran off, I mean it got close to the ground and then disappeared into the ground or faded away or whatever. It was just gone. So I saw this wolf thing standing up on its hind legs, looking at something across the road, and then it sees my headlights, looks at me, in one motion goes flat to the ground and disappears. And even just me vocalizing that and recalling it makes me sound absolutely batshit crazy. But that was super weird, and I've never seen it before or after that there. And in fact, now it's more of a four-wheeler trail, and it's kind of groomed and stuff. But yeah, that's just really friggin' weird, isn't it? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and my batshit crazy story. And if you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching.